Up next, we have an academic feature on the topic of social TV and second screen. May I invite Professor Shawndra Hill from Wharton School onto the dais. Professor Hill is an assistant professor in operations and information management at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. She studies data mining, machine learning, and statistical relational learning and their alignment with business problems. Specifically, she researches the value to companies of mining data on how consumers interact with each other for targeted marketing, advertising, and fraud detection. Her current research focuses on the interactions between TV content and social media. Welcome, Professor.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm going to talk today about social TV and the second screen. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. Okay. So social TV, let me define it, at least what I mean, and I'm going to define it broadly. So when I think of social TV, I think of people on social media, usually viewers of TV shows, commenting and communicating with one another about TV shows. And social TV has meant a number of things to people, including this mention of the second screen just in general. And so sometimes these two terms are used synonymously, where the second screen means that there's another screen in addition to the television screen that you're paying attention to when you're watching TV. And so I've been doing research in this space for the past year and a half or so, 2 years actually now, looking at what the implications are of the fact that people are now communicating at large scale while they're watching television on mobile devices, on tablets, and on their computers. So I'm not the only one that's been paying attention to this phenomena. So because it's been observed that so many people are talking about television, there's a whole ecosystem that has evolved almost overnight to support this fact. And people are communicating somewhat organically on sites like Twitter and Facebook, but it's not just Twitter and Facebook where people are talking. There have been a number of social TV applications that have emerged to facilitate the communication between viewers. So examples of that are a site called GetGlue and a site called Viggle, and even there are applications that have been developed for Facebook. More traditional companies have also gotten into the act. So in the US, a traditional company that provides guides to viewers, historically it was a mailed out magazine or a magazine that people bought at the grocery store. Now it's a guide online, but they've built into their system a recommendation engine based in part on what we know about interest from TV viewers by what they're saying online. So there's an entire ecosystem that's built in, and the good news for students and for companies is that a lot of this ecosystem, and even my research that I'm going to talk about today, is being built on top of data that are out there in public for free. So a lot of this data that people are trying to make sense of, so people talking about television, is out there in public for free, and you can build applications to mine it, and you can use it for predictions, and companies and researchers alike are doing just that. So it's a wide open space. In the States, all types of TV shows are incorporating social TV content. So CNN is a major news station. You guys probably have all heard of it. And broadcasters on CNN will ask viewers to tweet about different content, tweet with them, to vote on different ideas. And it's not just news shows. So sporting events, major sporting events now include social TV content, and major award shows as well. And even when TV shows don't include the content, viewers are still tweeting and posting on Facebook about them. And it's not just something that's happening in the US. In fact, people are talking about television across the globe. And there was a recent release for this Tele-Tango. Maybe you've heard of it. So this is a new application that actually supports the Indian market. So supports Indian TV shows and facilitates communication on Facebook about them. So it's a huge market, and we should all care because it's projected to be a $257 billion business by 2017. And that is in part because of all of these new solutions that are being built to support this ecosystem, as well as advertisement. So because so many people are tweeting about television, advertisers pay attention, right? So these are advertising dollars that are going in as well as dollars to support the system. So we should care. It's been deemed one of the 10 most important emerging technologies by MIT Press. People are talking about television shows at huge scale. And most importantly so this is a research talk, so most importantly for research, we can see the response to different events in real time. And this is important because you can isolate events and then ask, how does information spread online as a result? And once we know that, we can begin to ask questions about, well, how do you tweak the content on these TV shows such that the message that you want to spread will be spread more effectively and more efficiently? So the work that I'm going to talk about in my short time with you covers kind of two areas. So on the one hand, I study what I call event studies. So we kind of look in detail at the response to specific TV shows, specific advertisement campaigns, and kind of take a deep dive into specific events. And then on the other hand, we take data that's being generated for a lot of television shows and more generally use that data to do things like predict viewership, predict customer lifetime value, and even build recommendation engines for TV shows. So I'm kind of pulled out all of the guts of the research details, so hopefully I'll be able to give you enough to give you the high-level view, and if you're interested in any of these studies, there are papers to support them. So I'll start with some of the events, or an event study where we looked at social TV triggers, or what we call social TV triggers. So there's a TV show in the US called The Voice. And I don't think there's a show called The Voice. So The Voice is in China, it's in other countries. But you have a similar show, Indian Idol. So it's a television show, a reality television show, where contestants sing and they get voted off. So similar to American Idol, the main difference is that each of the singers has a coach, and there's a team that the contestants that are singing belong to, but they all get voted off. So the fact that this is a reality singing show isn't what's special about The Voice, but instead, what's special about it is that very early on, they incorporated social media content into their show. And so it's become known for sort of one of the pioneers for including this social TV content. And they did so by including 3 different types of social TV triggers. One is simply putting a hashtag on the screen throughout the show. The second is, while the show is going on, they actually post specific tweets on the screen. So sometimes these tweets are from viewers, and sometimes the tweets are from the coaches and the contestants. And they even have what's called a social media room. So for a few minutes during the show, they have an MC facilitating communication between the viewers and the contestants on the show through Twitter. So viewers are posting tweets, and sometimes their tweets get put on the show. So I'll give you the 4 takeaways from what we've learned from studying The Voice. So the first one is that these specific tweets tend to generate more engagement. We measure engagement simply by looking at an increase in buzz or mentions about the show after this trigger is being placed on the screen. So after a tweet's being placed on the screen. So when a tweet has been placed on the screen versus when a general hashtag is being placed on the screen, the tweet generates more buzz for the show. And also, what we found is, in the US, shows are aired at different times depending upon where you live. So the East Coast sees shows 3 hours earlier usually than the West Coast. And what we found is that the East Coast response is much greater to these triggers than the West Coast response. And so this is important when shows are thinking about how to incorporate content, because this could be, our hypothesis is that this is because the show has already been spoiled for the West Coasters, right? So if you know already who won the show, by the time it shows on the West Coast, what's there really to talk about, okay? So we found that these triggers actually generate more word of mouth. The specific ones generate more than the general ones. And then on the East Coast, there's a bigger bump in response to these triggers than on the West Coast, is the main finding. In addition, for The Voice, what we also see is that we can link the social media buzz to sales for the show. So one way that The Voice makes money is they sell these songs that the contestants are singing as part of the show once the show ends on iTunes. So we're able to track these iTunes sales, and these plots just show the relationship between buzz, so the number of tweets in this plot about the show in general compared to the average sales rank of iTunes for the entire group of singers for a particular show. And on this plot, we correlate the amount of buzz for an individual contestant and their sales rank. So we are able to link the buzz for the show to a hardcore dependent variable, which is the sales ranks for these songs. And we can, and I won't show you the slides, but we can also predict, or we were able to predict pretty precisely who was going to be voted off based on the buzz from the contestants, from the viewers about the contestants. So in the spirit of these triggers, here are my triggers, right? So here's the Social TV Lab hashtag. This is my Twitter handle. And so what I'm doing is showing you exactly what these TV shows do. What they're doing is reminding you to tweet, right? So if I didn't remind you about my hashtag, you probably wouldn't even thought about tweeting, right? Maybe you still won't tweet, but at least I've reminded you and it's top of mind right now. So this is the idea behind what they're doing and why this is likely working. So they're triggering you to remember to tweet. And so here, the punchline is simply that these triggers lead to more social engagement for the show. So the second study that I'm going to talk about is what we've done looking at response to TV advertisement. So people or viewers not only respond to TV shows, they also respond to TV advertisements. And so there's a huge event in the US. It's called the Super Bowl. It happens every year in February. And it's a major TV advertising event for the US. Companies spend millions of dollars to get spots during the Super Bowl. And what was found in 2011 is that while some companies put both social media content and links to their websites, right, or different online content, not all of them did. And so what we were interested in is sort of do these social features, whether it just be simply linked to their website or a hashtag mention or a link to Facebook, does this actually lead to more word of mouth on social media? So in this study, we simply asked whether the social media strategy of the advertiser, specifically whether they had a link to media in the ad, whether they were playing a game with the viewers, whether they were doing engagement on Twitter and Facebook in real time, did that lead to more viewer engagement in real time? And the way that we measured engagement is using some pretty standard measures now. So volume, so how many tweets were there about the brand? A half-life, so was there more sustained talk? Sentiment, were the tweets positive? And then did the brand get more followers? And finally, we looked at the diversity. So these were all measures that we explored and asked whether they varied by advertisement and whether their social media strategy seemed to make a difference. So we studied the Super Bowl. There were 111 million viewers in 2012. It was expensive, high profile, and we got all of our data, again, for free through the Twitter API. We had over 500,000 tweets in our data set. We collected them between 5 p.m. and midnight, the day of the Super Bowl. And we were able to search for keywords in advance of the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl advertisers are made public days in advance of the Super Bowl. And so we coded different features of these advertisements and tried to link those to the success of the advertisements as well. And the simple punchline was for these studies that having a social media strategy actually mattered. And so what we were able to do is look at, in real time, the response to these advertisements. So on the horizontal axis here, I have time. And on the vertical axis, it's the number of posts, or the frequency of posts about the brand Teleflora. So Teleflora was an advertiser during the 2012 Super Bowl. And if you look at this plot, you might, the takeaway might be, well, it worked, right? So this red line is when the advertisement was shown. And right after that, there was a peak in buzz, right? So there was a bump up in buzz, and then it died off. So Teleflora might be considered a winner. Can you start the video, please? Thanks. So let's look at this Teleflora ad.
Guys, Valentine's Day is not that complicated. Give, and you shall receive.
So it turns out that this ad received a lot of buzz. It was shown at that red line, and immediately after there was a bump up. The problem, though, I won't ask you if you liked the ad or not, right? The problem is that the sentiment varied greatly by gender. So immediately after this ad was shown, women were pretty upset by it, and men were relatively happy. And so, maybe Teleflora doesn't care, maybe that's what they were going for. But we found in looking at the response to these advertisements that it wasn't just Teleflora. A lot of the advertisements varied in terms of the response by gender. So at the bottom of this line, I have the ads where women didn't like the ads as much as men, and at the top were the ads where women liked the ads more than men. And so at the bottom, what we noticed, we only have 43 advertisers, so it's hard to make sort of clear conclusions, but we noticed the bottom, almost all of them had female models in them. So the women were pretty hard on those ads. And you could learn information from sort of mining these tweets and the response in real time about which demographics are responding positively and which ones aren't. So the message there is that there really is a difference in terms of response by demographic, and that you can see it in the tweets. And then the second takeaway was that while there were some ads that had this kind of what we call bursty buzz after the advertisement, so these red lines were the bursty advertisements, there were others where the buzz was sustained over the entire Super Bowl. So Chevy was one, and it wasn't just that people talk about Chevy more. So this is a plot of buzz over the entire week, and this is just the increase in buzz on the day of the Super Bowl. So it wasn't just that people talked about Chevy more, it was that, in this case, Chevy was playing a game with the viewers. And so was Doritos. So for Doritos, you see more sustained buzz also. So for the advertisers that were playing a game with the viewers, they were receiving more sustained buzz. And so this just shows that those brands that were playing a social media competition, so we're the ones here and the one over there, had both more tweets about the brand and more new followers, right? So if they were playing a game, you had a social media strategy, it worked. So the summary, Teleflora and these other ads had the peaky buzz, and then it died down, while Chevy and others had the more sustained buzz. And there's this demographic bias to the tweeting. How much time do I have? I know we started, I just want to... well, don't tell me that. After all day. Okay. So I'll probably skip through a lot of details of this other stuff. So after 2012, we kind of did this study again, trying to replicate the results, and we took it a step further. So we actually looked at influence. And I'll just kind of skip through here, right? So influence, we're looking at whether these viewers who were tweeting actually were able to impact other viewers. And we measured that simply by retweets. So influence to us in this context simply means that one person tweets something, another person sees it, so their friend sees it, and then that friend retweets it. And so what we were interested in is trying to figure out whether influence somehow varied by context. So there have been a lot of recent studies about influence, and people tackle identifying influence from various angles. So one angle is usually to look at where the position of the person sits in the network. The other angle is just looking at, usually in these one-off contexts, who are influencing. And there have been recent studies that said the punchline was kind of men in general are more influential than women. So I didn't like that result. And I was just curious, right, to see whether that is true, if we could replicate that, and whether it's true. And so what we thought going into this is that there's no way that in general, like broad sweeping, that men would always be more influential than women. Instead, we thought that it depends on the context, and it also depends on the content of the message. So in the advertising space, the context means the brand that you're talking about, right? Or the commercial that you're talking about. And then the content means, what did the message actually say when you were talking about it? And so how we tried to answer this question is we took the tweets and we actually built a model to label the tweets with a genderness score. So how female-ish did the tweet read based on a model that we built. And we simply built the model taking tweets from women and tweets from men, and then tried to build a model separating out the tweets and the words that reflected female-ish language versus male-ish language. And so what we found simply in this study is that men are much more likely to retweet men, controlling for the network size and who's in their network, and women are much more likely to retweet women. And then when the content of the message has female-ish language, then women are even more likely to retweet women. So in this particular context, when we're looking at response to advertisement, both the context, what people are talking about, and the content of the message matter with respect to being able to predict the likelihood of retweeting. And I'm going to skip through some of these slides. Sorry, I just gave you the main takeaway just because I don't think I'll have time to go through all of it. Sorry. And so we did this also, by the way, for presidential debate topics, where we, instead of looking at context being the ad campaign, the context was instead different concerns or different issues that people care about, or at least that they cared about during the campaign. And we found a similar result, that women were more likely to retweet women and men were more likely to retweet men. And when we coded the text for female language, women were even more likely to retweet it. Okay? So here's my trigger, right? And so here's the punchline again. women and men respond differently to TV advertisements, and when they do respond online, women retweet women more than men, and vice versa. So these are two examples, so the advertisement example and the voice example, where we looked at kind of response to specific events. We've also used tweets more generally, like I said in the beginning, to build different systems. So one of them is a recommendation system. And the way that we built this system is based on the tweets of the followers of TV shows. So this is a TV show recommendation engine built strictly on, again, publicly available data that's out there for free. So the way that we did the data collection, we started with the Twitter handles of hundreds of television shows. For those TV shows, we went out and got all of their followers, and then for those followers, we went out and got all of their tweets. And then we represented a TV show by all of the tweets, not just tweets about the TV show, but all of the tweets that the followers of a particular show made. So we have this nice document of tweets that represent that show, okay? And we did that for all shows, and we then calculated the similarity between shows based on these documents that we created that represented the audience. So we have this nice new data collection approach that allows us to build this recommendation system based on text, but the way that we collected the data, it also let us evaluate the system on the Twitter followers. So we took Twitter followers that followed at least 2 shows, and then when it came time to evaluate our system, we gave one show to our system that the Twitter follower followed, and then asked, could our system predict all other shows that they follow? So it turns out, just using all of these tweets that the followers of the TV shows made to represent the TV show, we do a really good job. So we simply created a bag of words based on this document and coded the words based on what we call a TF-IDF score. So each word was given a score for the document where if the word was mentioned frequently for the show but not frequently across all other shows, it was given a higher score, and if it was a general word like the, it was given a really low score. So that's the spirit of this TF-IDF score. And then we calculated the similarity, just cosine similarity on these words, and we do a really good job. So over 30% of the time, when we give an input show from a user, we can predict at least one of the shows that, other shows that the user follows. So why does this work? It was fascinating, right? So we did it, and it worked, but the rest of the time, or a lot of time, was spent on figuring out exactly why this works. So it turns out, and I won't have time to go through this, but the words represent both information about the show as well as information about the demographics of these followers. So the words reflect really well the demographics of these audience members. So if we look at shows that skew, an audience that skews heavily female, the top words for those shows are love, beautiful, cute, happy, amazing. On the other hand, if we look at a show that skews heavily male, the proportion male is high, we get words like game, league, Hulk, battlefield, comic, players, right? So when we took this step to figure out, what these words are actually reflecting, it turns out that, at least in our analysis, it seems that it's reflecting both the demographics as well as as well as the interests. So we were able to get interest of the people that follow the show, and so if we did the same thing And this was somewhat surprising. The words even come out in the ranking to reflect the interest of the audience members. So these words have a lot of information, and you can use them to both predict demographics of the audience and calculate the similarity between them. So the punchline here is you can use Twitter followers to estimate viewer audience demographics, and you can do it pretty reliably. So the final two studies, I'm just going to kind of give you the punchline. They're pretty new and really exciting to us anyway, so hopefully they're exciting to you. One of the social TV apps that I mentioned earlier in the talk is GetGlue. And you might not have heard of GetGlue before, but what GetGlue allows you to do is check into TV shows. So this is similar to checking into a location on Facebook. So maybe when you came to this building today, you checked into the location. Maybe you posted a picture and you assigned the location. So it's similar to that, only you're checking into TV shows. So we were able to observe for over a year the check-ins to thousands of TV shows. And what that data looks like, so this is just a plot where each line corresponds to a week. So think of week 1 of the show, week 2 of the show, and then the horizontal axis is basically just the hours of the week. And so you see for this show, which is The Voice, it aired on Monday and Tuesday, so people checked in more on Monday and Tuesday, and just 1 week they had the show on for 4 days in the beginning. So you see just one line have peaks for 4 days. This show is The Big Bang Theory. Maybe you've heard of it. So here it was airing on Thursday, and you see these bumps. So we have check-ins over time for thousands of shows using the GetGlue app. And so these check-ins arguably can be used for a proxy for viewership, which is really exciting for the following reason. So what we were hoping to do is initially just use these numbers to predict viewership. And so we get the GetGlue check-ins, we get the tweets, and the Nielsen viewership numbers. And so the punchline is we can actually predict Nielsen viewership numbers pretty early, and so the implications of this are huge. So Nielsen data is really expensive, and perhaps, right, the social media data for the first time has some value in that, or where we can actually show it anyway, for prediction, where you can actually predict the viewership numbers. So in addition to using this data for predicting viewership, we also used it to estimate customer lifetime value models, and we did it in the following way. We used standard customer lifetime value models that are used in marketing where recency and frequency is considered, and we asked, can we get a better fit if we use information that the viewers are giving me about how big a fan they are? So we basically built 2 models. One where we have the people that have said something positive about the show, and then another where they checked in but didn't say anything on Twitter, right? So we got all the tweets from these people that are checking into the site, and we can see whether they're saying something positive about the show. So we did this for new shows over the past year. So this is just showing 4 of them. And so these plots are giving you an estimate of the frequency of repeat transactions given how many times they've logged in. So the differences here to note are the distributions are different, right? So you have a much higher bump. So the likelihood that somebody is going to continue to check in, given they've said something positive about the show, is much, much higher than if somebody says nothing at all. So again, the social media data is helping us to fit better customer lifetime value models for these TV viewers, which has huge implications for being able to predict viewership as well. So here, the social media has value. It can predict viewership. We can fit better customer lifetime value models if we take evidence about their engagement and how positive they are about shows. So that's it. If you're interested in the work that I talked about, there are papers, again, that support all of this. And so there are a lot of things that we plan to do next. So we're currently talking with a few shows to try to run experiments to test some of the results. So now we were only able to look at the response on social media to these triggers, and we believe they really are leading to more word of mouth, but we actually want to test this hypothesis, so we're hoping to do that. And then we want to link these social TV features to viewership better. So we want to predict viewership better. So again, this space is wide open. The data are out there in public for free, so there are huge opportunities to do really cool stuff in this space if you're interested in it. Thanks for your attention, and I don't know, is there time for questions? Okay, good. Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Thanks.
Okay, questions? Just raise your hand. Yeah.
Great stuff. My name is Shishir. The question is about how are you utilizing this, or what are your views in terms of e-commerce opportunities through this? So suppose I am seeing an ad on TV. Can I directly go to the second screen and purchase from there? Or there were certain apps which I heard about where you see the stuff in the show, and if you want to buy that sofa, you go ahead and buy that sofa through the app. So what are your views on that? What's the latest thinking on that?
So, I mean, I think that's the holy grail for advertisers. So we're not doing that. We're hoping to better understand the potential for doing that. So we might run an in-house kind of survey looking at what people are doing while watching, but we just haven't worked with any of those application providers yet, and I don't think any of them are really there yet where there's a complete tie-in to the shows. I heard recently, it's related but not exactly what you're talking about, that so Bluefin and Twitter basically, because they can see that you're checked into shows and tweeting about it, they're using that to advertise to you. So they know you saw a specific advertisement because they know you were watching a show, and so they're promoting ads of the advertisers that were advertised on the TV. So people are trying it, I guess, is the point. But actually purchasing, I don't know of anybody that's doing that well yet, like linking it to purchase.
Hi, I'm right at the back on the right-hand side. I got my hands up.
Oh. Hi.
See me? You can see me, okay. So I had a question regarding the Teleflora and the Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, while the sentiments were negative from women who were tweeting on Teleflora, did it actually increase sales? Because the target audience were the men, and if it appealed to the men, I'm assuming that it might have, positively increased sales. That was one question.
Yeah, so it could have. I said, so I said it quickly. So, but I said maybe that's what they were going for, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't have the sales data for Teleflora, so I don't know.
Okay, and that's fair enough. And the second question was, well, the Super Bowl is kind of a unique scenario, right? I mean, the ads are almost a ritual, and the expectations are very high. So I just wanted to know if after Super Bowl, or ads that were not released on Super Bowl, did they have similar sentiments in terms of the number of people talking about the ad or saying good things about the ad? Maybe, I'm just thinking, was the expectation skewed because it was Super Bowl, it's a special day, and there's a lot of expectations for the ads coming out on Super Bowl?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we tried to replicate this over and over for major TV events in the US, so that had a lot of viewers, so like the Grammys, for example, and major finales of TV shows that are popular, and the volume just isn't the same. So so people still talk about advertisements in general, like for brands at least, but you don't get the same response, to your point. I mean, you just don't.
Good morning. My question, I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan actually. So the problem with the relay is you'll have to wait for the DVD to come out, or you have to wait for the show to come out. So when the time the show is being aired, there is a hashtag that goes Breaking Bad along with the AMC tag. So I still feel that AMC or HBO, for that matter, still do not consider places apart from the states to be a serious market. So whatever tweets and whatever trends you are saying, they are local, right? So still, we have become redundant. Our tweets do not matter as much as they would have mattered in the states.
Yeah, but so I get your point, but that's true for even the West Coasters, right? So like, I said in the beginning, right, that the West Coasters, at least in our data, they responded at a different rate to these triggers, and that's in part, we think, because the show has already been spoiled. So I think that's happening to everyone. If you're not seeing it for the very first time, usually on the East Coast. It happened to us in the States for the Olympics, so that was an example where we were getting spoiled material. So you're right, that it's spoiled, but you just gotta close your eyes, I guess, I don't know.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, 1 second, I'll have to go up there.
Hi. So how do you see this social screen? How do you see it working in the Indian market? Because a large chunk of the Indian audience that watches TV is not very active on Facebook. And they are active, but they're not very clued in because a lot of GECs and all which generate very high TRPs. And like he said, a big chunk of the audience that is active on social is watching shows that have already released in the US at least a year ago. So that's kind of redundant.
Right.
So how do you see this pattern replicating in the Indian market?
So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. So a couple of things. One, and I was talking with Rima about this yesterday, she mentioned that a lot of shows are incorporating SMS messages into their shows. So perhaps it's not the same medium, right? So that the second screen isn't, you're using your computer and using Twitter, but instead your phone is the second screen and you're responding SMS messages. So that's totally feasible for shows to ask for people to vote by SMS. And I guess in terms of replicating it in the Indian market, I think it's up for TV networks to try it, right? So part of, a lot of the buzz is happening organically, but also shows, because they saw that these things were happening organically, are trying to force it, right? So they're incorporating these different strategies into their shows to help generate the word of mouth. So there's nothing to say that Indian TV shows can't do that, even if they ask for a response through SMS or apps on SMS.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nishant. I'm here. Hi. Very nice presentation. Looks like you created a mathematical and statistical model for human behavior. So it was interesting to see that. However, maybe I'm talking a little controversial here. Using this statistical model, can I do a simulation analysis and say, if I go and plant 20 tweets, depending on the model you have, and which has more probability to get retweets, I can create popularity on my own. Can it be used in a negative sense? I hope I'm clear.
So you're talking about like the influence? When I was talking about
I can plant tweets, with the same words which have more probability to get retweeted among men or women, depending on the brand I'm trying to sell. If it's for women, I can create 20 tweets or 200 tweets on my own, paid tweets,
right,
which have more probability to get retweets, and it goes, that hashtag or that handle gets more viral for me to create the popularity, although the brand might not be that popular.
Yeah, so this would be the idea to test for firms, right? So the next step would be to really figure out whether this female-ish versus male-ish actually matters, and we can try to test it using an experiment. In terms of things going viral, a lot of things go into that, right? So it's not just whether it's female-ish or male-ish language, it's also, I think what you're getting at, like, is the tweet maybe controversial? Does it have emotional content, right? So those are all features that could potentially be tested, and that people have tried in other contexts, not necessarily tweets, to try to figure out like what are the features of just, you know, text that make them more likely to be passed on or even retweeted in some contexts. So you can try to make things go viral, but the reality is that making things go viral is actually quite difficult, right? And so here, in what we were doing, it's not necessarily that these things went viral. Like it could have had, each tweet might have only had on average, you know, 3 retweets, right? It's just asking the question, who was more likely to retweet if the sender was a woman or a man? So the focus really wasn't on making things go viral. But that would be the next step, right? To figure out like what these features are that make it more likely to be.
No, but his question is also, Shawndra, whether you can simulate beforehand as to what are the things which can lead to a certain type of impact, almost like an oil price or whatever. So that is, if I get you right, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you simulate beforehand to figure out what will work for a particular context, movie, shows, whatever? Has the science reached that level?
So I haven't done that. Maybe somebody else is working on that. I think that'd be pretty hard. I mean, so people are trying to do things like predict the next hot topic. Maybe that's related, right?
Thank you, Shawndra.
Okay, thank you.
Close. Thank you.
Thanks.